Hi, everybody. So great to be with you again. I'm so excited to be here at this Emanti space because the more we speak about Emun and Bitachon, hi, everybody. So great to see your faces. Thank you so much. The more that we speak about Emuna, the more that we repeat it to ourselves, Be'ez Hashem, the more it's going to get deeper and deeper into our own hearts, and I hope and pray into mine. So here we are, Parsha Shlach, and what a week it's been since it's been quite a week since we last met. Incredible outpouring of miracles upon our holy land. And so Parshas Shlach is there's a famous Archaim that Shlach lecha anashim, send men, but if you ask me, send the women, because the women have a chibas haaretz aleihim. The women have a love of Eretz Yisrael. And so here we are among the women of Klal Yisrael. We have such a love of Eretz Yisrael, a love of the land, a love of the land that Kadosh Baruch Hu has given to us, the love of the land that Kadosh Baruch Hu's eyes are upon the land. Mireshis Hashana va'ad Sof Shana. The Kadosh Baruch Hu his eyes are constantly on this land. And this week, those of us who've been here and those who've been watching the news, I'm not usually a news buff. In fact, my family knows me as being probably one of the most non-politically interested or news-oriented people that they know. But this week, I have been glued to the news. It's a miracle. Everything that's happening is another miracle. So we cannot let this opportunity to get together and talk about the miracles of Hashem. We were just talking. Remember, just a few weeks ago, we were saying how Reb Elia sat with the Zvila Rebbe of Shlomka Zatzal. No, with Rav Motchel, actually. It was Rav Motchel, the grandson of Rav Shlomka. He sat with him, counting the miracles of what it means, Dayenu. And actually, it was about the rescue from Uganda of the hostages, that they were sitting and recounting the miracles of Hashem and thanking for every miracle that took place. And so it's incumbent upon us to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So many of us have joined together with people across the world today saying, again, we didn't join literally, we joined spiritually, right? We said Nishmas, we said Mizmor L'Soida to Hashem. And as we say in Nishmas, we cannot, there's no way that we can possibly thank Hashem for all of the miracles. The miracles are so overwhelming and so big and so enormous that even if we were to thank from morning till night the rest of our lives, we wouldn't be able to thank even for the miracles that we've had until now. And how much more is the obligation now that we see with our eyes and we witness what's going on, that Kadosh Baruch Hu opened up the doors. He created such the physical world that opened up the door, that the mysterious nefesh of so many people prepared to put their lives on the line for Klal Yisrael was greeted with such blessing. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved us in so many miraculous ways. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knocked out so many Rishonim in such a small amount of time, one after the other. We saw so many miracles by the beginning with so many enemies from Hamas and Hezbollah. Yemach Shemam v'zichram, their memory should be blotted out. And now to see in 1 week another, there's the sons of Amalek being obliterated in so many miraculous ways. We don't have the capacity to thank but to leave the topic without touching on it at all is also impossible. We can't possibly just go on with our days and not talk about the miracles, about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed the Air Force to completely take the skies within a day of an enemy nation. This is unheard of. The things that are going on are big miracles. Friends, we are living in incredibly miraculous times. And we must keep the miracles foremost in our minds. When we do that, when we remember the miracles constantly, and we constantly remind ourselves of the miracles, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing himself in such intense, amazing, awesome ways, it's the same Ribbono Shel Olam that is running our lives as well. That Ribbono Shel Olam who's taking care, who knocked out all of these people with the precision that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I was talking to one of my friends today, we were just talking about the kinds of miracles, and she said that Hashem revealed the brilliance within mankind that they could come up with such plans. Yes, that's also a miracle. To thank Hashem for the miracle of the brilliance of the planning. It's not that any individual could say, I'm so brilliant, or that we're relying on, we're not relying on certain people or on their brilliance, but that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing the brilliance that he has placed within mankind, which is a miracle, and that they should be able to come up with such brilliant plans to that within such a short amount of time, so many different aspects were able to work together to destroy the planes that were ready, so that they couldn't leave, to destroy so many of their ballistic capacity, to destroy so much of their nuclear capacity in one go. The most dangerous time was that first hour or two, where the capacity was maybe who knows what kind of reaction there would be. And the 100% success that HaKadosh Baruch Hu granted to all of the hishtadlus that was put in is awesome. And it's awe-inspiring, the depth of dedication to Klal Yisrael that so many spies had, that they gave up their lives to live in Iran for so many years, waiting for this day to be able to save all of us. We are so grateful to the people who have that kind of Mesiras Nefesh and dedication to our nation. And we are overwhelmed with gratitude to the Ribono Shel Olam, who is showing that he is the ruler of the world in so many ways. A friend of mine told me that her brother was once on a tour of one of the American army bases in America. He took his family for a trip, and they were talking about various military strategies that were used in different wars. And afterwards, they went over and they said, you mentioned all kinds of different things, but you didn't mention anything from the wars of Israel. Why didn't you mention even a little bit? He said, no, the wars in Israel are so beyond nature that you can't talk about military strategy when you're talking about something so beyond nature. And that's before we even come to what happened in this last week. Our generation, we witnessed an outpouring of miracles. I don't know if such miracles have been seen since Yetzias Mitzrayim. I don't know. I'm not capable of delineating and absolutely knowing the depth of the miracles, because only the Sod Lashem, all the miracles are really a secret to Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. Only he knows the full aspects of all the miracles. But what we know is just like the Gedolim, Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim sat in Bnei Brak, and they understood that in every single miracle that took place by Yetzias Mitzrayim, it was not just one, but it was 5 plagues against the Mitzrim. So and Rav Elia and Rav Motrele from Zvil, they sat together talking about the miracles and counting the miracles that Hashem did at the tremendous rescue of the hostages in Uganda. And they sat and counted. No, that was really 3 miracles. It was really 4 miracles that took place in one. How many different miracles were involved in every single miraculous outcome that happened this week? Incredible amounts of miracles. That there was somebody in place, that somebody was able to be hidden all of those years, that all the technology that they put in place worked, that they weren't discovered. I just heard that they were almost discovered at the last minute, and that they weren't discovered. Every day that they weren't discovered is a miracle. And that the communications between all of the different bodies that needed to be in communication with each other, that the communication worked, and that nobody else was able to interfere with their communications. And that even what came over Eretz Yisrael, over the land of Israel, over our land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes are on from the beginning of the year till the end of the year, and through the next year again, that whatever came over, that there was so little damage to life. We mourn every single death, every single Jewish person, every single person and loss. Of course, we miss it as a tragedy, and at the same time, we look at what could have been the potential for damage over, and we say, "Hoda Hashem ki tov." It's just to not thank all the time feels to me to be the wrong thing to do. Like, how could we not thank? How could we not thank? There's so many miracles, and we haven't even scratched the surface of the miracles because I don't know enough, and that's why I'm glued to the news, as I'm usually not. But I just want to see, how is Hashem revealing himself more and more and more. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing himself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved Donald Trump from assassination twice already. Was it twice or three times? Saved him. And he recognizes that it's Yad Hashem that saved him, that heaven has saved him for the purpose of supporting the Jews in Eretz Yisrael today. And it's for the benefit of us, and the whole world is for the benefit of us. And as the Ramban says, from the big miracles, yes, a class today for the schus of Gedalia Ephraim ben Pinchas Tuvi, whose yard site is today. Yes. And so, I actually was just in the middle of saying something and I distracted myself, but that's okay. If I need to say it, it will come back. Yes, the Ramban says, from the big miracles, we learn about the smaller miracles. And of course, there's no such thing as a big miracle or a smaller miracle, but impact or scope, okay? Of course, a miracle of the degree of thwarting the Iranian regime of acquiring nuclear missiles, thwarting that is a miracle of massive scope. Massive scope, that this has been on the agenda of the major threat to the Yidden, to not just Eretz Yisrael, but to the whole Western world, but to the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael and to Yidden all around the world for the last at least 20 years. This has been on the agenda. This has been the biggest threat. And all the other minor threats that were big problems, Baruch Hashem, Hashem helped to get rid of those, to make the way for this. And that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put strategic people around the world that would recognize that, to bring the support that was necessary to the degree that is necessary. And there are still those voices against, just to show us that that's really what the Goyim think. But that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts enough support just to save Klal Yisrael in our land. May he continue to reveal his miracles. And from the big miracles, again, the smaller miracles, those that don't affect, let's say, so many people, or that so many people don't know about, but they're our individual lives. They're the things that we need. They're something that maybe no one else will ever know about, but it's something that between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the same Ribono Shel Olam, the same Ribono Shel Olam who's running this entire world and all of these miracles in it and saving us, is the same one running our individual lives. Motzei Shabbos, I had, Baruch Hashem, a family of mine was visiting from Tveria. They had planned to come for Shabbos, this Shabbos, and they ended up, yes, coming on Friday. We didn't know where they would be able to come. They came on Friday, and they decided they weren't going to go back Motzei Shabbos, but they would go in daylight on Sunday. And Motzei Shabbos, as we were, there was a siren and we had to go into the safe rooms. So we had to go outside in order to go into the safe room. And as we're going outside, we see tens, maybe 50 of the explosions, the actual bombs that are coming and the explosions meeting them and blowing them up in the sky. And my son said to me, he said, look and run. Look and run. You have to see what's going on in the sky. How can you just run in without seeing the incredible light show that Kodesh Baruch is putting on for us? And nothing was happening on the ground. The or minimum was happening on the ground. It's incredible. It's incredible. And we're going to learn a bit about how to approach the problems that we may be having in relating to the miracles by comparing ourselves to the nation that was in the midbar and was being fed, living with miracles. So, Kodesh Baruch Hu, so Rav Asher Freund, Zecher Tzedek Livracha, and Parshas Shlach, he says, when a person takes the emunah, takes his capacity to believe, and he takes all of that capacity to believe that we have within ourselves, and he hangs it on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He takes his faith and his trust, and he puts it all in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then he is able to see in front of his eyes the hashgacha, the divine providence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, accompanying him at every step that he takes. And every corner that he turns in everything that happens in our lives. When we look for it, when we speak it out, when we remind ourselves about emunas Hashem and about trusting Hashem, and when we speak it out, we will be zoicha to see it more and more. Every aspect of his life and every circumstance of his life and every experience in his life, he will see that everything that's happening to him is not only for his good, and is only coming for his good. And you know what? We may have to wait a while to see it, but the Sfas Emes says that when a person truly believes in a Kadosh Baruch Hu, then even if he doesn't get what he wanted, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help him to realize why what he did get was good for him. That's the difference of having emunah and bitachon. We may not always get what we want, but we will always be told from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in some way we will get an inspiration, we'll get an understanding of why this is what's good for us. And when he's in trouble, chas v'shalom, he lifts his eyes up to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he lifts his hands in prayer to Shemayim, because he knows that whatever tzara comes upon him, it comes to arouse within him his heart to turn it to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And that's then our job is to turn every challenge is our job to turn that up to Hashem. This is going to be the theme of today, that whatever comes our way, it's going to be our job to turn it up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The trouble, the pain, whatever it is that we have, it's our job to turn it up to Hashem. That's not how it is with a person whose faith and trust in Hashem is a bit patchy at best. He only sees the natural happenings around him within his life, and he gives either the failure or the success, he hangs them on nature. He doesn't understand that they come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He doesn't have the miracles of Hashem hanging before his eyes, but he sees that the failure is natural, things made it fail, or it was the success, maybe it was my success, or somebody else helped me be successful, but he doesn't see that it's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it's good for him, he says, oh, Baruch Hashem, it's good for me. And when he's in pain, he feels guilty or blame or angry, because he's not fully cognizant of the fact that it's only from Hashem. Sometimes he even gets into a state of despair. Okay. And then if a person is despairing and doesn't integrate into himself ever more deeply, even when a pain comes up that we've had before and we have to go through it all again, it's okay, we can go through it all again. But if we don't recognize that it's coming from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, then all of the efforts that we put in to try and find some kind of solution, they're not going to succeed. We're not going to find our way out. The tzaddik, Rav Yochanan from Rachmastriv, just a second. Said, one second, actually, just 1 second. No, something else I needed to say. Okay, fine. So, in the Parsha of the Meraglim, we find something actually very disturbing. We see here how people can lose their way so tragically, and can even become to a situation where they lose their faith and they make night into day and day into night. They twist the true path, and as the Navi says, they make the heavens, they make bitterness sweet and sweetness into bitterness. This is what can happen when a person loses their faith and doesn't continue to grow in their faith. HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Klal Yisrael at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim miracles and wonders that had not been seen, and nothing had been seen until that point in the entire history of the heaven and earth till that point. Okay? We have been also, we're going to try and draw a parallel to ourselves here today. This week we have seen incredible miracles, the likes of which have been, let's say, it's unusual. Maybe there have been situations. I'm certainly, I wouldn't dare to say that I am an expert in the miracles, but we could say that it's rare that there have been this amount of this kind of miracles in one week. Okay, so we've also seen miracles, unlike what is usually seen on a regular basis or in a regular year. And these kinds of miracles that the Yetzer Mitzrayim, those that were in the Midbar, the kinds of miracles that happened at Yetzer Mitzrayim, more miracles happened and continued accompanying them through their journeys throughout the desert. And they had a journey through the Midbar that turned the desert into a land of milk and honey, as the Torah testifies what was going on through all of their wanderings. Bnei Yisrael are coming, they are continuing along their journeys in the Midbar in a wondrous way. And they're carrying on, they're all according to their encampments, and they all walked together with their flags. Each shevet walked together so they had a tribal identity, they had a spiritual identity. All their needs were met. They had Shabbos, they had food, they had clothing. Everything that they had was met, and they saw how the path was smooth for them. All of the nations of the world who heard about their flags and witnessed their encampments were jealous of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu shined their hashgacha pratis from above and how it was hovering over them. It was visible. And I believe in the world right now, it's visible the kinds of miracles that are happening over Klal Yisrael right now. Anybody who has eyes in their head can see the open miracles that are happening about Klal Yisrael. And there's definitely a lot of jealousy going on in the world about the kind of miracles that we're zeicha to here in Eretz Yisrael. And now they were already on the threshold of entering into the land. And the spies came along and turned everything on its head. They spoke Lashon Hora about the good land. And with tremendous chutzpah, they even spoke against Hashem. They did not understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Their minds were twisted to misinterpret the goodness of Hashem. They didn't see the goodness of Hashem. They didn't allow themselves to recognize the goodness of Hashem. They were witnessing the same miracles, but they misinterpreted HaKadosh Baruch Hu's purpose. They misinterpreted HaKadosh Baruch Hu's relationship with us. And that was the basis of their mistake. They saw the Ananei covered, and they saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wings over us, protecting us from everything. And they said, it's all come to trap us in the sword of the people who live in the land, that we and our children and our babies should be slaughtered in the land. Chas v'shalom, that's what they said. As if HaKadosh Baruch Hu had brought us through all that we went through just to murder an entire nation upon the entry to Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Yetzer Hora was able to convince them of. It's terrifying to think how the Yetzer Hora was able to do that, because this is really what we're supposed to learn about. We know we love the land. We love the land. We love Eretz Yisrael. We don't want to talk Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. Certainly, they were big people. These people that came into the land, they'd been through all the miracles. They saw all of this. But the sneaky Yetzer Hora gets inside our head, and he talks to us. And he talks to us as if he's our own voice. That was what happened by the Chet Adam HaRishon. When Chava ate that fruit, she ingested the Yetzer Hora. And from that moment, the Yetzer Hora became a part of us. And he speaks within us. And says, Rav Dessler, he says that the Yetzer Hora speaks in our own voice. He speaks to us as if he's us. So the Yetzer Hora doesn't come waving a flag saying, hi, I'm your Yetzer Hora here. I'm here to have a conversation with you on behalf of the Yetzer Hora. He doesn't do that. He speaks to us from inside ourselves. And if we get confused about that, we're going to fall right into the same trap that the Meraglim fell into. They were big people, but they didn't have enough experience with the Yetzer Hora. We need to learn from the failure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu planned for them so that we could learn from it. Because when we turn light into darkness, a straight path into crookedness, then everything looks from a different angle. Everything is spoilt. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu had made for them miracles and wonders. But nevertheless, when they came, so they came into Eretz Yisrael, okay? So they came into the land. And what did they see when the Meraglim came in? They saw that the people were busy burying their dead. Now, Hashem had made the miracle that the people of the land would be busy with their funerals so that they wouldn't see them and they'd be distracted and that the spies wouldn't be seen. But they misinterpreted that and they said, it's a land that eats up its residents. So the Yetzer Hara inside their head twisted everything around. The very same facts, the very miracle that was done to save us was turned into Oy Vai Lanu. This is to destroy us. The very same thing. So the people, the whole nation, what was the response of the nation? It would seem, we would think that the entire nation would say, what kind of nonsense is this? And that they would throw them out, that they would simply not tolerate such words. But Chas v'shalom, unfortunately, that's not what happened. One second. So they turned all of these nisim to lashon hara about the nation and about the land. So they didn't throw out the spies. We have to understand, when we read the parshas and when we read what's going on, we don't have a clue about the intensity of the nisayon not to be dragged along with the Atzas Meraglim. One time there was some of the Chachamim were sitting and talking about Menashe and how could he have been allowed himself to be drawn after Avodah Zarah to the degree that he was. And Menashe appeared to them and he said to these Chachamim, if you would have been in my times, you would have picked up your clothing and gone running to do Avodah Zarah. You have no idea of what the Yetzer Hara was like at the time. Nobody can climb inside somebody else's head and understand the Yetzer Hara that somebody else is struggling with. That's what we have to understand. No one can judge another person because we don't know the Yetzer Hara, but we also don't understand the Yetzer Hara that they had at that time. How great the nisayon was to join into what the Meraglim were saying. The Meraglim were saying, it's so scary. The land is a dangerous land. Look what we've been through. And Hashem has brought us here to destroy us. And they were terrified. And it looked scary. The Chafetz Chaim says about the nisayon of the Meraglim. He says, it did look like they were going to have a major battle on their hands. It looked like there was going to be so much that they were going to have to be fighting against. And they didn't know how they were going to be able to manage with such a war. And they thought that they were going to have to rely on miracles and that they maybe didn't have all the source of miracles because they'd had so much miracles in the desert. And so they thought, we're not going to have any miracles. We're going to have to fight a war in a natural scheme of things. We don't have the merits to stand up to such a battle. And that's why they cried that Hashem is going to draw us in here, and we're desperately we're going to fail. They were feeling tremendous despair. And The Chofetz Chaim says that from the words of the Meraglim we learn what was the nisayon, what was the problem. The Chofetz Chaim says that the words of the Meraglim were of Yeshua and Kalev. They said, "Lo timroidu, do not rebel." The Chofetz Chaim says, as long as we're not in active rebellion against Hashem, as long as we're not going against Hashem, even if we know that we're not perfect, we can still hope for miracles from Hashem. We don't have to be tzaddikim gemurim or think that we're tzaddikim gemurim, that we're perfectly righteous in order to get miracles from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we have to hope for miracles. We have to daven for miracles. The Maharsha says, if we get miracles without having asked for them, it takes down from our merits. It does take down from zchuyos. But if we ask for miracles as prayer, as matnas chinam, not because we deserve them, just because Hashem gives miracles, then we will get miracles and they won't be taken down from our merits. And the Chofetz Chaim says that we can ask for miracles and we have to rely on miracles. If we don't have another choice, we have to rely on miracles. We're not allowed to despair. And because they despaired in the face of that, that was the problem, because they didn't want to rely on the miracle. They thought that they needed to have so many zchuyos. But again, it was a big nisayon. And we don't know that we would have been able to withstand such a nisayon. We cannot judge that generation. It was a huge nisayon because the Yetzer Hora that comes to each person is commensurate with the spiritual level of that person. Hashem doesn't send a small Yetzer Hora to a small person. Hashem sends a big Yetzer Hora to a big person. And so they were big people. They'd been through so much. So Hashem sent them a very big Yetzer Hora. The conversation that the Yetzer Hora was having in their brain was something that they could barely withstand, which is why so many of them didn't withstand it. And we cannot judge. So when Kalev ben Yefuna didn't go after them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him a huge shevach and said, Avdi Kalev, my servant Kalev, he called him my servant. He had a ruach acheret imoi. He had a different spirit with him. And he went after me. So Reb Asher is saying that because it was so hard not to go after the Yetzer Hora, that's why Kalev got extra special mention, because it was insanely difficult not to go after the Yetzer Hora that was whispering through them at that time. And Hashem called him, so he withstood that test, because it was such a huge nisayon. The nisayon that goes on in our heads against the Yetzer Hora, that's the greatest nisayon of our lives, and that's what we're always up against. And we're living in a time where we could see open miracles, and still, that doesn't mean we're not going to have a Yetzer Hora. It doesn't mean that we're going to be free of the voices inside our heads. We're still going to have voice inside our heads, because that's how Kadosh Baruch Hu works. Because that's how this world is supposed to be. And if we have witnessed miracles, that doesn't mean we're not going to have a Yetzer Hora. Even the worst sins. One second. He says, Reb Asher says, the worst variants that come up before a person, it's a huge nisayon for a person to stand up against them. Because the Yetzer Hora finds the ways into a person's heart. He finds the ways into a person's head. And he finds the way to talk to him and convince him. And the Yetzer Hora is tricky. And he always has all kinds of tools at his disposal. And he knows just how to talk to us and how to trick us. And he gets into our head. And it's a tremendous person who can withstand the wiles of the Yetzer Hora. And if he does, every time that we do it, we are called an Eved Hashem. We're called a servant of Hashem through doing that. So let's understand a little bit more about the Yetzer Hora. The Divrei Yisrael of Majid says that there are 7 different kinds of thoughts. Okay? 7 different categories of thoughts. We might have thought, all our years of Jewish positive thinking, we know we have guilt and worry and blame. And okay, this is a different set of categories. This is fascinating set of 7 categories that are based on the 7 primordial midos with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Said, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. These 7 midos are the source of the 7 different categories of thoughts that come to us. And the Yetzer Hora then is going to come to us with these 7 different categories of thoughts. And our purpose, says the Divrei Yisrael, is to take each category of thought, whatever kind of thought comes into our heads, the Yetzer Hora that comes to us, and raise it up to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So let's use fear, because this is what was going on with Israel at the time of the Atzas HaMeraglim, and certainly there are those of us that are wrestling with fear in our times. I sat here in this chair yesterday night talking to a client, and as I'm talking to a client, I got a notification on my phone that emergency, you might be getting a warning. This is a warning that there might be a siren soon. So I told my client, I've just got a warning. I need to let you know that within the next 10 minutes, we'll know if there's going to be a siren or not. As it turned out, Baruch Hashem, there wasn't a siren in Beitar last night, and I was able to continue my session with my client. But we don't know where things are going. No one knows. Only Kadosh Baruch Hu knows, and we trust Hashem that there will be more miracles. And those moments when there's a siren, and those moments where we don't know where things are going to fall, Shem Yishmereinu from all chais, wherever they are. A person could feel fear. A person could think fearful thoughts. What are we supposed to do about this? So what we have to do, says the Divrei Yisrael, is we have to understand that every thought that comes to us, whether it's in whatever one of these categories it's in, one of these 7 categories, whatever it's in, it's a thought that comes from Hashem through the Yetzer Hora. The Yetzer Hora is a messenger of Hashem to bring a thought into our head. The Yetzer Hora it lives in our imagination, says Rav Dessler. That's where the Yetzer Hora lives. He lives in our imagination, and he whispers to us in our imagination one of these 7 categories. Let's go through the 7 categories just because it's fascinating to understand. Something about loving kindness, about the loving of Hashem, something about whether Hashem loves us, how lovable we are. Are we capable of being loved? Okay, this is all in the first category of thoughts. Second category of thoughts is fear, gevura. Third category of thoughts is truth. Tiferes is truth. Of course, there's many different understandings about this, but I'm just saying the general headings. Okay, any questionable, any aspect of non-truth that comes into our head is in the category of Tiferes. Any question that comes in of ambition and overcoming and endurance is Netzach. If a person wants to overcome another person, is in competition, this is a thought of Netzach. Hide is the mid of humility, of sensitivity to others, of being silent, of gratitude to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Any aspect or thought that comes from the opposite of that is fallen from Hide. Yesod is the midah of bonding, of connection, that is so misused with all different aspects of so-called love in our generation. Okay, and finally, the 7th midah is that of malchus, of leadership, of nobility, of selflessness. Anything that it's similar to pride, but it's also an aspect of gaiva, but it's not in action. Okay, the first 6 are action, are thoughts that drive to action, thoughts of action, whereas the 7th malchus is a state of being of humility, a state of being of selflessness. Okay, general large strokes, not very fine, but just to understand that these are 7 categories of thought, that when we have a thought of the opposite that the Yetzer Hora is whispering to us in our head, what our mitzvah is to do at that point and how we overcome the Yetzer Hora is lifting it back up to Hashem. If we have a thought of fear, so we're going to concentrate now only on fear, because that's the operative one right now. That was operative with the spies, and that's operative with us here as well right now. There is more than enough opportunity to feel fear. What does Hashem want us to do with the fear? What is the purpose of the thoughts of fear that the Yetzer Hara is planting within our heads? Is to lift it up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, how do we lift it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Well, how do we do that? What are the directions of how we do that? Is we recall the might and the almightiness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We recall the gigantic size of the cosmos. We recall the awesome creation of the world, that Hashem is in charge of all of that. We recall that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so much bigger than Iran, so much bigger than any particular human person. Hashem is bigger than precision. Hashem created precision. Hashem created time. Hashem created space. We fill ourselves, fill our imagination with those kinds of thoughts, so that by comparison, the fear of the direction of something created by man, by comparison, can fade into the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It takes thought, it takes time, it takes using our imagination. We need to really engage our imagination in order to do this, but this is the call of the time. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. He wants us to overcome the Yetzer Hara. When he sends a fearful thought, such as was sent in the minds of the Meraglim and in the minds of the people at that time, that it was such a huge Yetzer Hara that it was so hard for them to overcome, and that Caleb was such a hero by overcoming it. He sent a thought: Hashem doesn't love you. Hashem doesn't love you. He's not with you. They wondered, is Hashem with us even? Is Hashem even with us? That's what they wondered. And even though they had these incredible miracles, but that's what they wondered: is Hashem with us? Do we even have the presence of Hashem? And they said, we don't know if we can rely on Hashem. And so to shout back inside our heads against the Yetzer Hara, we can rely on Hashem. He's doing these incredible miracles. Hashem yilachim lachem. Hashem is going to fight for us. Hashem is doing all of these incredible miracles for us, for each one of us, because he loves us, because he's with us. He's not only with us, he's inside us. He's inside every cell of us. He is making every single detail of our lives. He's running it. He's the one making every detail of our lives. And so that's how we lift up the fear. It's not something simple. It's something that takes a lot of energy. It's a bit of it's challenging. It's not something that for the weak-willed. Okay, it's not something that just comes by a flick of a hand. We have to put effort in. But when we put the effort in, we will be in the team of Kalev. We will be called the Avadim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the call of the time. This is how we can overcome the Yetzer Hara and all of those other areas, all of those other kinds of thoughts that will invade us and that will bring us down. That's how we get down. Whether it brings us to despair and worry and all of those other kinds of thinking, the worry and the rumination and the fear and the blame and the guilt and the lack of self-esteem, all of those kinds of thoughts are in one of these 7 categories of a fallen midah that we need to lift up back to Baruch Hu. And when we do that, we have attached ourselves back to Hashem. We've done the purpose of being in this world by taking that thought, bringing it back to Hashem. That's what it means to find everything in Hashem. That's Hashem Echad Ushmoi Echad. We've done that. We've done the Hashem Echad. We've said this fearful thought that's in my head right now. It's really only you, Hashem. You're the power. You're the power of everything. And that's Hashem Echad. Then we become part of the Hashem Echad. And then we're preparing the world for the Geula where everybody can see Hashem Echad. And may we be zeiche soon, momentarily, to that day when it's all revealed that Hashem is one and everybody sees him. And the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's oneness is over the entire land. And that there's no more wandering anymore. There's no more nisyonos anymore. There's no more pain, no more suffering. And the tears will be wiped off every single face, and there'll be no more challenge. So these are potentially the last challenges that we're going through in history. So let's try our best. Let's give it our all. Thank you so much for joining me. I'd love to hear from any of you if you want to unmute or type something into the chat, add something, say something. Friends, ladies, I'd love to hear from you if you want to say something or add something. And if not, I do want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to strengthen myself and say these words. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your waves. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. And I see you all here together, and we can dance and sing and celebrate B'siyata Dishmaya with the Gula Shlema. Thank you all. Have a beautiful Shabbos. Bye, everyone. And maybe you'll be safe.